Introducing the Battle Rattles. These are the best rattles I've found so far for soft plastic lures because they have sound, but most importantly is they're nice and small, compact, so that they can fit in your lures without hindering the ability of the lure to look natural in the water. So for example, all right, this is a 3.5-inch paddle tail. The rattles are in here. You can't tell, right? If you have the bigger rattles, there's going to be a big bulge. There's in many cases going to be an issue, and it actually compromises the action of the lure in the water. That is a bad thing, right? The action is incredibly important. So we need to, when we add our rattles, we need to make sure that we do not create an issue with the lure's action in the water. And again, with these smaller rattles, they can be inserted. I'll show you how to do it for paddle tails as well as split tails. And on top of that, even our power prawns. It's super easy. But again, the key thing to think about is just to make sure that we're not creating a bulge in the lure, because any bulge will impact the action of the water. And in most cases, if you impact the action with a bulge, it's going to be negative, and that is going to significantly hurt your odds of success. So before we get into the rigging, let's just look at the rattles themselves. So I have in my one hand, right, this is the Battle Rattle, this is the small one. It's 3 millimeters by 10 millimeters. And here are a couple of the others, the competitors, I should say. Very big size difference, and there's not that much noise difference. Also, one cool thing that Battle Rattles have is it has the pointed end, so that you can stick it into soft plastic super easy, whereas a lot of the others, it's both sides are rounded off, so it's just not nearly as easy. And again, some are even longer, where now we're talking about, this is probably 16 millimeters. Again, when you compare that with the Slam Shady lure, right, there's really just not enough material for this to even go in without causing an issue, right? Because even if we're right here, we have to factor in the hook keeper. And let me just pull up a jig head, right? So you have to factor in the hook keeper, and so no matter how you do it, right, that hook keeper is going to bulge it out, right? You're going to have this, it's going to have to be angled up, it's going to be bulging out, and that's going to impact negatively the action in the water. All right, so first we'll show you how to put the Battle Rattles into a paddle tail. This is the Slam Shady 2.0. It's a 3.5-inch paddle tail. And just like anything, we need to make sure that when we are putting the rattles in, we're not impacting the hook keeper on whatever we're using. So if it's a jig head, we just want to make sure to keep this top section, right? It's pretty much this very tip top section nice and clean. Otherwise, we're going to be impacting the actual jig head. And if we're using a weighted hook, same thing, right? These coils are going to be going in the middle. So we want to make sure that we don't occupy that space. So what I like doing best for these Battle Rattles is to go in, so we know that the hook keeper, I'm going to be using a jig head in this case, we know the hook keeper goes to right about this point, so we're going to use this pointed end, and we're going to poke it in right behind the point where we know the hook keeper is going to go, right? Get that pointed section in there, and just push it in, get it all the way down there, and then once it's in, we actually poke it, push it further inside, and then push it back just a hair, right? Because we want to take away the entry spot. So right now, the Battle Rattle is totally in there, and if we leave it on its own, it'll start kind of wiggling its way out. You can see, the rattles of all sizes do this. Obviously, if this was a bigger rattle, this would be a much bigger bulge. And so what we want to do is we want to push it in a little bit more. So push it in, and then actually push it the other direction, right? So that we're actually digging a hole the opposite direction. We're taking away the exit spot, and we're now pushing that dull side back towards the head. So now that we have the rattle in there, we're going to go ahead and put the jig head in. And we know that the rattle's on the top, so we're going to take the jig head just a little bit low, just to make sure that we clear it. And that with that hook point is going around the rattle. Now we're going to shoot it up. Go right in there, and this rattle actually started poking out as we were doing that. So now we can just do the same thing, right? Get it back in there. We know that hole's already there. Poke it in, slide it forward, and now we are good to go, right? So this is the benefit of having the smaller rattle, where we actually shoved it in there. We have that cavity, and that rattle's in there. You have no major kinks, no major humps. The lure is not going to be impacted at all, and we have a nice rattle. You can't hear it because it's away from the mic, but you can definitely hear those rattles in there, and those fish can definitely pick up on that as well, and it'll help increase strikes. And now for split tails, right? The split tail is the same exact premise. You have multiple options. You can do it toward the head. In many cases, you go up the slot. You can do up toward the head. It's even so small you can actually follow the slot and then go back towards the tail as well. There's plenty of meat in here to do it in the tail. So I generally prefer to go in the head, just the same exact method, right? We know that the hook keeper usually goes about this far down, whether we're using a jig head or a weighted hook. So we're going to go in just beyond that, create our hole, and then shove it in there, right? Use that pointed section to dig that groove, to dig its way in. And then once we get it in there, now I'm going to poke in the top part with my fingernail, right? Dig that in and then actually dig it back, right? Want to make sure that once we get it in, we dig it back just a hair. And so now that rattle's in there, right? You don't have any major humps or anything. And so now with the twist lock, right, we have plenty of room to get in there. We have room above the rattle. Again, this would not be the case if you used one of those larger rattles, because it just kind of takes up just too much of the soft plastic. So let's go ahead and rig this up so you can see the full process, and we're good to go. I even went deeper than normal. So this is basically as deep as I'd ever rig it. It still did not impact the rattle. And now we can hook it. We are ready to go. And as I said before, it's all about making sure that the lure has the good action in the water. There's no major humps. There's no kinks. This lure is going to have great action in the water, and we can have a nice rattle as it's bouncing back and forth, as we're shooting it out of the grass, and as it goes back down. Every time it pivots, that rattle's moving in there and is creating some nice sound for those fish to pick up on. And now for the power prawn, this one's the easiest of all because it actually comes with a rattle cavity. So there's a rattle cavity in the head, and you just follow this cavity for the hook, follow the weedless cavity for the hook, and then in the top of that is a rattle cavity, and just slide the rattle up in there. And this rattle cavity goes all the way to the very top of the bait. So what I like to do is just go all the way and just use the whole thing, just to make sure that it doesn't somehow fly out of there. And so now the rattle's in there, or you can see it right in the middle. You can barely make it out. See those rattles up in there. But now just, and as you're rigging, just make sure to rig it so that it's not impacting the rattle cavity. As you've seen in the course, there's just enough material right here to slide either the weedless hook rig or the jig head right above that rattle cavity, and it's going to come out of the top, and that rattle is going to be in A-OK condition. But that's it, right? That's the cool thing about these rattles, is that it really works for any soft plastic. These are the ones I've been using it with most. They also work with gulps, with DOAs, and pretty much any of the traditional soft plastics that rattles can be shoved into. It works great. Given how easy they are, I highly recommend giving them a shot. They're easy to use, just takes a few seconds, and it adds some helpful noise to your soft plastics without impacting the action of the lures, which again is incredibly important. So they come in packs of 10. You can get them at fishstrong.com. I'll put a link down below. Let us know if you have any questions. Otherwise, make sure to pick some of these up, and I can't wait to see some awesome fish that you catch with these rattles. And if you're new to Salt Strong, just know that we're the best online fishing club in America, because we actually guarantee that you'll be catching more fish while saving time and money. We do this through our premium education, our exclusive insider community, and huge discounts on all the tackle you need. To learn more, go to saltstrong.com. Otherwise, hope to see you again soon.